J.A. Aurora Legends, Golden Hearts, Act 1 Finale, The Goddess of Lies, written and narrated by T.S. Pro Art. The dawn painted the skeletal frame of little Salvaheim in hues of gold and rose as Void, Jida, Pofnu, Jet, Kor, and his group followed Princess Jessica through the reborn village. The Sparks were already hard at work, rebuilding their homes with the same unwavering determination that defined their race. "Come on! We have something you should see! It might shed some light on what happened!" Jessica called out, her voice echoing slightly in the winter air. Void and Jida exchanged a familiar glance. On Jida's back, nestled in a baby sling, little Jay slept soundly, his soft snores a calming counterpoint to the urgency in Jessica's tone. Their path led them towards the edge of the woods, where a large cabin-like structure was taking shape. A grand lodge, as one would say. Inside the open framework stood Rosalind, alongside Astrophel, Rune, Phasma, and a scattering of other Sparks. "Ah, my lord, welcome." Rosalind greeted out to Void, causing him to wince. "Don't call me... whatever, what's going on?" he asked, approaching a round table in the center of the unfinished lodge, where a sheet rested, concealing something beneath. "What's that?" Jida inquired as the group gathered around the table. "As we all know, we were attacked by an unexpected enemy, a force none of us have seen nor recognized." Rosalind began, dramatically pulling away the sheet. Revealed was one of the mechanical goblin creatures that had assaulted them. Its body was mangled and broken, exposing gleaming metal parts to the cold light of day. "Whatever they were, and whatever they wanted, they are ancient, very ancient. These runes along their armor," Rosalind explained, smoothing her hand over the machine's metal arm. Etched into the steel was an ancient form of spark text. "They are only seen in the old scriptures. What did the attackers say to you again, Novason?" All eyes turned to Void. He looked down, crossing his remaining arm and huffed. "Well, it was something along the lines of freeing the banished," he reinstated, glancing up towards the others. "The banished? What is that? Some kind of Spock history lesson waiting to happen?" Pofnu asked, stepping forwards with her hands out to her sides. "I've never heard anything about the banished and Spark stories you've mentioned, Blue. Is it some kind of unknown we just don't know about?" Jida added, echoing Pofnu's question. Rosalind, her expression thoughtful, replied, "As queen, I was taught as much about the ancient past as my husband. Never in any story or tale I studied was there ever a mention of this banished Void speaks of." Void reached out and picked up the machine's severed head. Its powered-down, beady eyes stared back at him like a forgotten skull. "What about shapeshifters? Any old tales of something akin to that?" Rune interjected, his gaze fixed on Void. "Only in legends from what I know, but nothing concrete," Harmony stated, poking at the lifeless machine. "That is correct. There are only supposed tales of such spark-like beings, but nothing concrete," Rosalind said, examining the machine's corpse as well. Void's mind was racing. He held the cold metallic head in his hands, a growing anger shimmering within him. "They said I reeked of home. They were able to sense that the Sparkborns reforged into me. They wanted to find... her." His eyes widened as realization dawned. He looked up, his gaze fixed on the distant woods. "Blue, what are you thinking? I know that face," Jida said, her voice laced with concern, drawing everyone's attention. And it never really means anything good. Pofnu added, her ears drooping slightly. With a mental command, Void summoned his blue bolt armor, the fabric and plating of the suit laced over his body, sealing up over the empty space where his arm used to be. Only his head remained exposed. I'm thinking that I'm gonna pay our favorite goddess a little visit, he announced, turning to face the group. What? Void, are you insane? Core exploded, his eyes wide with shock. Huh? No, mister. Jida barked, taking a step forwards and pointing at Void's chest. A chorus of confused protests arose from Core's side, while the newer sparks remained silent. Void, she killed you! How do you think confronting her, let alone with one arm, is gonna go for a second time? Lee exclaimed, her voice filled with love and concern. Terribly! It went terribly, that's how! Alice added, shaking his head in dismay. Void, are you just asking for death? Why? Why would you want to? Jida pleaded, her voice cracking. Void reached out and gently cupped her cheek. Because either me or everyone here, Jida. Besides, he assured, a hint of a smile touching his lips. I don't want to go in alone. No more of that solo crap, remember? Jida raised her hand and held his against her face. Something is happening. Something that we have no knowledge of. It's either we figure it out or succumb to the unknown. Void stated, proceeding to gently rub Jay's cheek. And I won't stand for anything that threatens our family. At his words, Astrophel perked up, with a gentle smile gracing his lips. Wherever you're going, Novason, I'll follow, he declared, shedding his coat and pants to reveal a tight-fitted suit of blues, whites, and purples beneath, the streamlined design marked with unique curving patterns. I've got my own family blooming upon this planet. Their safety and everyone else's is my top priority. Count me in wherever you're going. Astrophel finished, bowing his head the Void's nod of acknowledgement. Fine. We'll join too. It seems we all share the same mentality in this situation. Rune stated, as he and Phasma also stepped forwards, his armor, however, looking more on the wear and tear side after the previous battle. Sika placed a hand on Jida's shoulder, offering comfort. I can take Jay if you wish to help Void. Jida sighed deeply, then carefully unslung Jay from her back, kissing his sleeping forehead before handing him the Sika. Please take good care of him, as well as Pofnu until we get back. Core and Atlas stepped forwards, solidifying their place in whatever Void had planned. This is a bad idea, Void, Core said, watching his brother say goodbye to Jay and the Fox. If we sit back and do nothing, we could face a terrible reality, Core. I'm willing to confront an enemy we understand, instead of going after one we don't. Void responded, clipping the machine's head to his belt, before opening a portal, a swirling vortex that led to the Soleus, the same place he and the others found out the truth of their maker. With a sharp and angered breath, Void leapt through the portal, his determination a tangible force. Jida warped her armor on, her expression a mixture of determination too, as everyone stared with worry. Jed also approached, deploying double turrets over his shoulders. Locked and loaded, he stated. After those words, everyone who opted to join disappeared into the swirling blue swirl, leaving those who stayed behind pondering and worried for what would come next. The portal shimmered and collapsed, leaving Void and his team standing shoulder to shoulder in the familiar yet unsettling throne room of the Sparkborns. The ancient temple that now echoed with the silence of death. The Sparkborns, the very gods of this realm, still laid as scattered and broken monuments to Matira's wrath. Void, Core, Atlas, Jet, and Jida, hardened by their previous encounter, stood stoic. But for Astrophel, Rune, and Phasma, this was a fresh wound. The sight of their deities, mangled and lifeless, struck them dumb with disbelief. By Matira, what have you done? Phasma whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heart. Fueled by rage, Void's voice boomed. Matira! His call echoed through the silent chamber. The newcomers approached the fallen gods, their faces etched with shock and grief. Astrophel knelt before the shattered remains of Sabrath, the divine tinkerer. Drawing his katana, he gazed at his reflection in the polished steel. Hey, why the long face, champ? Jada's voice, though laced with concern, cut through the heavy atmosphere. Astrophel looked up, his eyes clouded with sorrow. It's nothing, Miss Woods. It's just... Sabrath was connected to my family in a way. He gestured to the katana. This blade was forged in Sabrath's divine hands. He gifted it to an ancestor of mine. This blade was passed down through generations until it inevitably found its way to me. Astrophel stood, sheathing the weapon back at his side. The blade is embedded with the fragments of the Sparkborn's power. It's special. Atlas then snapped his head to Astrophel. Wait, so are you saying that your blade is basically a weapon of the gods? Astrophel nodded. I could slice a mountain in half if I wanted to, Scrapeson, but I wield it with dignity and honor. One day my own child will bear this blade. I'd rather its legacy be of honor over destruction. Jada smiled softly to his words. That's noble. Congrats, by the way. Astrophel offered a grateful nod. Meanwhile, Rune and Phasma walked side by side, their faces pale as they surveyed the scene. Rune gently laid a hand on the broken form of Seraphon, the son of the light, his head shaking in disbelief. She killed them because they got in the way of what she was forcing us to do, Kor said, approaching them. Seraphon explained it all. We were mere pawns in Matira's plan. If you didn't fully believe us then, surely you do now. Rune shook his head, his voice hoarse. No, I do. I've just been struggling to understand why. Seeing them like this, it's like everything I believed in since I was a boy has been flipped on its head. How could she do this? Kor sighed, glancing towards Void, who was continuing the call out for Matira. She couldn't live with the loss of our people. It twisted her mind, I assume. We know it's a lot, but... Void. Kor paused, looking at his brother. He's the best of us. They chose him for a reason. You may not see it now, but in due time, you'll learn to understand. Phasma nodded and added, I believe in him. He was the first to check up on us even after how you acted towards him, Rune. A true leader always looks out for their own, even if relationships are rocky. She stated with a firm stare. Oh, the kid took an arm for everyone. Say what you will, but you can't deny that his heart's in the right place. If what he says is true, Seraphon and the others seem to know what he was doing. Rune sighed, standing to his feet. Alright, I get it. You guys are acting like I'd kill him in his sleep. Astrophel chimed in. Sure seemed like you wanted to the other day. He then slowly followed Void, who stood before the central throne, his jaw clenched. Why don't you take a seat? It's technically yours now. Jada suggested with a gentle nudge. No, it's not my place. I'm no king or ruler. I'm the same as everyone else. It's going to stay that way no matter what I may be. I'm a spark, like everyone back at Little Salvaheim. Void said, turning away from the throne. Where the hell is she? Out of all the places you'd think she'd be here. He huffed, anger growing within. She's probably off hiding and rebuilding that face we smashed in, Alice muttered, lighting a cigarette. Well, if that's the case, where would she be? We literally don't know anything about this place, Jada exclaimed, gesturing towards the golden-lit sky and the intricate structures surrounding them. Jet then suddenly smiled. Oh, what if we ask the entity that's approaching us from afar? He then pointed towards the cloudy sky. The what? Void asked, confused. Everyone turned to see what Jet was looking at. In the distance, a black dot was growing larger, accompanied by what appeared to be flapping wings. What the hell is that? Cor asked. Looks like some kind of bird or something, Alice added. Suddenly, Void's eyes began to flicker yellow rapidly, catching Phasma's attention. Novasun, your eyes. Void took a step forwards, his gaze fixed on the approaching figure. Wait, he murmured, watching as it grew closer and moved faster and faster. Is that? Jada asked, her voice strained. The figure grew larger within seconds. Oh Christ, everyone get back! Void cried, unleashing a non-lethal blowback pulse to push his allies away, just as the massive form crashed through two of the pillars and landed on Void, smashing him to the floor and sending him sliding across the marble, her heels directly on his neck. Novasun! The giant figure cried, her face still blown open, her eyes burning with rage. By the gods! Ashfell shouted in awe and shock as he crumbled back and stared at his creator. It's her. It's actually... Rune stammered, panic and amazement flaring in their hearts as they scrambled to their feet. Void! Jada screamed, before she and the others were suddenly struck by bolts of dark matter electricity, stunning them into an unmovable state. Gasping, Void tried to fight, but was suddenly snagged by the throat and hoisted up to be eye level with Matira's grotesque face. His breath snagged, his eyes widened with anger as he tried to pry her hand off his throat. Matira, wait! He tried to reason, but she flung him around and threw him into the thrones of the room with such force and speed that the central one, Seraphins, shattered on impact. Void shouted in pain as Matira was upon him again, seizing his throat once more from overhead. I am done with you and your little family. I stayed in my place, listened to your words, yet you come back even after I agreed to your terms. Matira roared, her voice echoing through the heavens. Matira, that's not... Void tried to reason. Shut your mouth, boy! Her words were fierce, and she began to punch Void, forcing him to deploy his helmet. After a few brutal blows, she threw him again into a hard slide. Getting back on his feet, Void summoned his spear, his eyes narrowed and tense as Matira approached him, all while his allies struggled to stand. The wind whipped around Void, tugging at his scarf, as Matira landed. The force of her descent was a physical blow, a shockwave that sent him stumbling back across the ancient marble courtyard once again. He regained his footing with a desperate backflip, his eyes snagging back to the goddess. A glint of gold, the flash of sunlight in her bladed spear, was then locked in combat. Matira! Void shouted. I do not care! Matira roared, her voice a guttural thunder that echoed across the desolate landscape. Not even a month, not even a few days, yet you returned to my lands after the deal we struck. The air crackled with the impact of their blows. Spear met spear in a shower of sparks, each parry a testament to their raw power. Void, fighting defensively, struggled to keep pace with Matira's furious assault. He then caught one of her punches with his remaining hand, to everyone's bewildered and even terrified shock. Summoning his inner energy, he unleashed a pulsating wave of yellows and blues, forcing Matira to stagger back. Matira, listen to me. We just want to talk. We're not here to kill you. Void pleaded, his voice strained. But the goddess was a whirlwind of rage, her spear dragging a furrow path in the stone as she advanced. What do you know about the Banished? Void at last shouted, prepping for an onslaught. But the words, however, seemed to strike her like a physical blow. Matira halted, her face contorted in confusion. What? What did you just say? The anger drained from her voice, replaced by a guarded curiosity. She then leveled the point of her spear at Void's neck. Speak, you worm! Repeat yourself! Void cautiously lowered his weapon, glancing back at his allies who stood with weapons drawn, ready to defend him and themselves. What do you know about the Banished? He repeated, his voice even. He then unhooked the mangled head of the robotic monster from his belt and tossed it at her feet. The clatter of metal against marble echoed in the sudden silence. Batira's eyes narrowed, focusing on the twisted metal and sparking wires. With a snarl, she plunged her spear into the machine's head, lifting it to be eye level with her. Beside Void, Rune gently gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief at what he was seeing. I don't believe it. It's really her, he whispered, awestruck by the presence of the one they called the Maker of Sparks. Matira grumbled, her fingers tightening around her spear shaft. Where and how did you come across this? Speak, you little rat! She flung the head back to the ground, the impact creating a small cloud of dust. We were attacked by shapeshifters, spark-like beings that looked pretty similar to you and your... Void looked at the Sparkborns. Your family. He stated, taking a cautious step forwards. They attacked me and my fellow Sparks without warning, claimed something about freeing the Banished, and finding her. It didn't take long to think on where to start seeking answers. Matira's eyes flared at his words, her gaze intense. Yeah, they literally tore off his arm, Jaya added, gesturing towards Void's missing limb. We came here seeking answers. Answers that we believe you may have. Or maybe you were the one behind it to begin with, Kor said, his voice laced with barely suppressed anger. Wouldn't surprise me after forcing me and my family into light labor for 15 years. A long silence followed. Matira stood motionless, her mind a tempest of conflicting thoughts. A flicker of fear momentarily escaped her, eclipsing her rage. She clenched her jaw, her eyes shifting from Void and his companions to the mangled head at her feet. It can't be, she muttered, turning away. It cannot be. Void stepped forwards, his voice low. What cannot be? Matira stopped with a turn back, fixing Void with a piercing stare. With a gruff gesture, she retracted her spear and wings. Did you tell them anything? Did you tell Hatos anything? The question hung in the air, thick with unspoken meaning. Void and his allies exchanged confused glances. Hatos? Void asked, bewildered. Did you or did you not? Matira shouted, jabbing a clawed hand at his direction. What? No. Wait. So you do know what's going on? Void realized, taking another step forwards. Would you care to elaborate? Matira growled, her hand twitched at the sight of Novasun, his irises burning with familiar energy. But something more pressing was at hand. She wasn't about to let blind rage cloud her judgment. I always had a feeling this day would come, she said, her voice low and ominous. She held out her palm. Instantly, a section of the floor opened, revealing a dark spiraling staircase that descended into the bowels of the temple. Come. It would unfortunately seem that we have a shared enemy. All eyes turned to Void, their gazes a mixture of worry and apprehension. What? Jada whispered, clutching his hand tightly. Common enemy, huh? Asherfell asked, his brow furrowed. One by one, they began to move forwards, drawn by the promise of answers, following the goddess into the unknown depths, the darkness swallowing them whole. The ancient staircase seemed to groan under their weight as the group descended, the runes etched into the metal and stone blurring in their peripheral vision. Purple and blue torches cast flickering, surreal shadows, painting the scene in an otherworldly glow. Void, his voice sharp and laced with accusation, broke the tense silence. "Alright, Matira. What the hell is going on? We should have a right to know. As a Matterbirth, I should know." Matira, her back ramrod straight, didn't even turn. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was a low, venomous hiss. "I'm not even sure why I'm bothering. You destroyed over a decade's worth of work. And for what? One little world that has mere endless copies with the same story? Give me one good reason not to just push you off this staircase, Novason." Void bristled, stopping abruptly, forcing the others to halt behind him. "Oh, sweetheart. Sorry that we were just following the code you entitled for us at birth," he shouted, the echo of his voice bouncing off the cold stone. The remaining sparks remained silent, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. Finally, they reached the bottom. With a flick of her wrist, Matira activated a series of hidden lights, flooding the subterranean hall with an ethereal glow. A collective gasp rippled through the group. Before them stretched a breathtaking space, a grand hall carved from dark, textured stone. The arched ceiling loomed impossibly high, a testament to the scale of the structure. But it was the far end of the hall that drew their attention, for a dominant feature silenced their breath. Suspended in the center of the back wall, bathed in an almost holy light, was a colossal winged humanoid statue. It appeared to be crafted from gold or some similar gleaming material. Its arms were outstretched in a gesture that was both welcoming and unsettling. A glowing, circular object adorned its chest, pulsing with a soft inner light. The statue exuded a serene yet commanding presence, a masculine figure with gigantic horns that scraped the ceiling. Beside it, seemingly on the same elevated plane, was another statue, clearly a match of Matira herself, younger looking and around the same expected age as the male spark design. Dim blue light streamed from an opening above, illuminating dust motes, dancing in the air, and casting dramatic shadows that danced and writhed across the walls. Lying along them were numerous smaller statues, also winged, but made of marble or a similar stone. These figures were bound and restrained, their hands tied together above their heads by golden ropes and chains that stretched across the hall towards the central statues. The ropes seemed like an integral part of the structure, connecting the smaller statues to the larger ones. The figures appeared to be in a state of submission or supplication, their posture suggesting distress or entrapment. The overall palette was cool, dominated by shades of dark gray, teal, and muted golds. The contrast between the dark stone and the luminous central statue created a dramatic and somewhat ominous effect. A large chunk of ceiling appeared to have crumbled, adding to the overall sense of age and decay. "Whoa," Jada muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who is that?" Rune asked, his eyes wide as he stared at the monumental figure. Jet, his eyes furrowed in concentration, shook his head. "My readings are empty. I have no knowledge about this place, these statues, all of it. It is blank," he stated. "Why is this underneath the temple?" Void demanded, his gaze sweeping over the hall's ancient rune-covered walls. Matira turned, a smile playing on her lips. "Well, since you're so adamant on being the big Matterbirth and wanting to know everything, I think you deserve an answer for your hardships." She paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. "The creation story you all know, it's not entirely true." "What?" Voight said, his voice flat, his eyes narrowed. "Do you know the story of Adam and Eve? How a god created two individuals to be stewards of a world, to care for and nurture the Garden of Eden, and to eventually populate this world with their offspring?" Matira asked, her gaze fixed on Void. "Well, the big guys that made me had the same idea. You see, I wasn't just the first spark. I was created alongside another, my husband." She gestured towards the golden statue. "I was named Matira. He, Materoth." Shock rippled through the group. "Wait, there were two of you?" Jada asked, her voice laced with disbelief. The other sparks remained silent, their faces registering a mixture of astonishment and dawning comprehension. "For many years, yes. We controlled the matter, built up the Soleus, and even bared natural children. Children that are different to the ones I've slain," Matira stated, looking down at the floor, a hint of sadness in her voice. "However, as the years went on, those children of ours began to create, making what would become an early stage of what you would all soon be." She summoned the monster's head to her hands, turning it over and over. "The first version of Sparks," she revealed to a collection of odd gasps. "Over time, Materoth grew, let's just say, ambitious. One fateful day, he began to think not for the purpose of life, but how he could break his born-bound shackles. He began to indulge in only the dark matter of our world, believing that he could make all of reality better under our rule, so long as we had the power to do so, going against the role we were made out to be." Matira explained, her voice surprisingly somber. "Of course, I couldn't stand for that, and a falling out began. A great civil war upon the Soleus. Our marriage had shattered. It was him and our children against me and the lesser beings we had created. The Soleus was ravaged and desecrated, a twisted take on the beauty we had forged." Matira's gaze fell to the floor, and a single tear formed in her eye. "When things got thin, I used what remained of my power to manifest my son, Seraphin, and my daughter Dolphian to life. During the war, they went on to make their own offspring. Together, we fought on until the final battle that took place here." She gestured to the temple interior. "With the power of balance as opposed to darkness, I was able to override my husband and tear away his soul, imprisoning it into my own, resulting in this." Matira gestured towards the dark matter swirling around her body's left side to everyone's disgust. "Upon his weakened state, me and the new Sparkborns used a soul-bound spell and banished him, our previous offspring, and his own personal knight, the one you faced, Hatos, and all of his followers into a dimension so far and deep within the seams of reality that they would remain banished for eternity. A silent hell of fire and shackles. Or that's how it should have been." Matira looked away, a troubled expression on her face. "Of course. No wonder why they have reemerged," she muttered, a hint of weariness in her voice. "What do you mean?" Void demanded, his voice sharp. Matira sighed. "In killing my own Sparkborns, I ended up shattering half the spell that keeps him bound, which means the smaller beings at his side, less powerful than him, can slip through the cracks in reality. Not here, but it would make sense as to why they came for you. You could lead them here if they got their claws on you, matter birth of hope." Kor scowled. "So this is still your fault! You all lied to your entire species!" he huffed. Materoff and his empire were not important to what came after. It was best to keep the story simple without drawing fear to your kind. Everything I've done was out of love for you little Spocks. Void stepped forwards again, his face tight with anger. Love? Is nearly killing an entire world love to you? He asked. That sacrifice was meant to be a one and done, boy. That little world is one of millions upon billions in the sea of realities. Same people, same stories, just without you or its M count. I did what I did to try and save our kind, to bring a sense of peace back to the worlds that needed us most. I lie to protect. Void shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Protect? Huh? Look at what that's gotten you! You lost your mind, and now your secret little family is rising from the depths of hell. I lost my arm because of your protection. Little Joby is questioning her existence. Cognizant and Tails are dead. You killed your own children. This! All of this! It's on you! He ranted with such ferocity that made everyone shudder. Materia just shook her head, her voice barely audible. I was just doing what I thought was right. It's all I've ever done. Jada stepped forwards, her voice softer but no less intense. Uh-huh. Now, what would happen if they do reach you, huh? What would that be like? Materia looked away, the weight of 1,000 sins etched on her face. They'll do what they can to kill me. If I die, the seal breaks. And when it does, he escapes, and worlds will be devoured. She paused, a grim look on her face. Thankfully, they cannot reach the Soleus on their own. Void snarled. So that's why we're the target. They need me to get to you. Of course. Of course! Void chuckled, his mind feeling as if it was about to break. Say whatever the hell you want. But at the end of the day, it's the little guys that pay the price for your protection. He said with a quotation motion in his hand, chuckling again. As he did so, he opened a portal back to Earth. I don't know what love really means to you, but this is anything but that. Tears began to well in Void's eyes. If there's one thing I can truly learn from you as my predecessor, is that I will be the Matterbirth our people truly need. The one they've always needed. Not as a story, but as someone who stands and speaks truthfully beside them. And I'll do it to my last goddamn breath. He now noticed the anxiety creature watching him from behind Materia, its red eyes unblinking as his heart began to violently race. Goodbye, Materia. Void bid his farewell with silent tears as he and his group lumbered back to Earth, leaving the goddess standing still, shrouded in a deep, unsettling silence, in a hall that held the weight of a cosmic secret.